Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to these reminders of Ramadan. Today I want to continue. It is episode 15 on Laylatul Qadr. So we continue on the theme of Laylatul Qadr. We are in the last 10 nights of Ramadan, and Laylatul Qadr is within us. One of the things about Laylatul Qadr that makes it unique is that it was the night in which the first revelation was made. The time that precedes this revelation is a time in which Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam would visit regularly the Mount of Hira, and he will in the cave of Hira, and he will there spend large amount of times in prayers of some kind. We don't know exactly how he was praying, because at that point he didn't have the revelation about the prayer and the knowledge about how prayer in the way we do it today. But it is known that Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam used to go to this particular place, and he will seclude himself. And he, on account of what his wife Khadija told us, is that he, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he used to go there quite regularly, and he loved seclusion. He loved to spend time on his own praying. And the conditions that the fact that the first revelation came when he was in seclusion, it tells us something about the importance of this practice, that it was known from the people before, and all the prophets had practiced it, and then later on it has been a practice of great people, walis of Allah and sheikhs of tariqah, and generally it was a practice that it was common to initiate oneself into the relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In previous times, before Islam, we know that similar practices, they were taking place as a kind of initiation to some kind of adulthood, or in some cases of an inclination from people who had an inclination towards Allah, and they wanted to reach nearer. Khadija herself, he participated with Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, bringing him food and facilitating his journey. In some accounts it says he used to go every year and spend an entire month there. It is possibly that there was accounts of different, in which I spent less time, maybe in other places too. But as a practice, and the connection with Laylatul Qadr is clear because of the very event of the first revelation. The Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam became prophet on that particular event, in that particular circumstances, in that particular place, and tell us something about this Laylatul Qadr, which is then recreated in the form of itikaf, where the people will, like Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did in the last 10 days of Ramadan, he will seclude himself in the mosque and will participate in regular prayers there. That there is the very idea of secluding. It's not just prayer at night. but is an state of separation and detachment from the affairs of the world, and with the intention of a dedicated time to conform, to come closer, to submit, to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what is the meaning of it? And in which way it can help us, and in which way we can make use of it. In when we fast, we detach ourselves from food, from water. But when we detach ourselves in seclusion, we detach ourselves from the reality of the world, the things that we get ourselves involved, our business, our relations, the narrative of the world in which we have to participate if we are in society, and all that is what we separate ourselves from. We separate, therefore, from the natural order of the society around us, and we do it for the sake of coming closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In which way this is valuable? In which way separating oneself is of any importance to us? How do we actually benefit from it? Well, whether we like it or not, society exercises upon us an influence, sometimes desirable, sometimes undesirable, in terms of building up a narrative of the things we have to do, the things that we have to do, the laws that they are applicable, the lack of laws, the practices that they are enforced upon us, the exploitations and abuses that sometimes, especially in these societies, they are put upon us. This creates a narrative, and that creates an understanding of the world and a narrative of the world upon which we establish ourselves, and we live within these codes. Yet what we know is that the only code that is valuable, the only law that is valuable, the only narrative that is valuable, the only truth is the one that comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not what comes from society. For in order to reach these different source of truth that comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it becomes necessary, it becomes useful to be able to cut yourself from the things that you are doing. It's like in the same way that if you want to find yourself in the direction to where you are going, you stop driving and you just stop for a moment, and then you look into the map and then you say, well, this is the way I want to go and this is what I have to do. Stopping and disengaging yourself from whatever else that you are doing. And that allows you to look upon the things that you are doing from a position of detachment. In the same way that when you want to coach a football team, you cannot be playing at the same time. It has to be somebody who's outside. You have to be disengaged from the sport in order to coach it, in order to lead it, in order to organize it, in order to strategize. It's the same thing. You need to make a stop, and you have to say where I'm going. And this type of what is often is spoken as meditation, but we don't call it meditation. We call it dhikr of Allah, because we are not simply meditating about the existence of the world. It's not an activity of the brain. It's an activity of the heart, and the activity of the heart is of a different kind. What you are seeking when you go into seclusion in our tradition of Islam is not to meditate about the events of life, and not even to meditate about God, because reason doesn't allow you to understand God. But to use the heart in seclusion, And that the use of the heart means that you're using your love for him and your fear for him as an instrument of coming closer to him. Love of Allah and fear of Allah. These are the instruments that take you to understand things that they are not reachable by the brain. Now, this cognitive capacity of the heart is unknown to the people outside Islam. In the West, for example, everything which is spiritual is always translated as something intellectual, ideas. But it's not how we understand it in Islam, because the activity of the heart is cognitive. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. The people who have taqwa, you understand this book on account of the taqwa, not on account of the IQ, not on account of understanding what the world is. You understand this book on account of your taqwa. And this is a condition of the heart, and that means the heart has cognitive capacity. And in this cognitive capacity that you want to enhance is where you perform the prayer, and you call upon Allah, and you do dhikr. Is stimulating the heart by seclusion, cutting off from all other narratives in order to involve yourself into a complete different path, in which what you are doing is open up your heart, expand your heart at the same time that you are constricting. You are pacifying the brain. Worship is an act of the heart, and in seclusion, the prayer can improve easily, and the proofs are clear. The people who pray in seclusion, they improve the prayer. Some people, they learn how to pray. It's not that they don't know the movements, but they know what it takes to pray, involving the heart in the process, so that the tears can flow from you. And this is how we know of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in his prayers at night, that he had often tears. He loved to pray at night, which is another form of seclusion. The night is when nobody is around. You are alone with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then you can focus on your heart. You worship with your heart, not with your head. The worship of the heart is cognitive, and cognitive means that changes the way you live. And the Laylatul Qadr, which is this special night in which this incredible reward appears in the case of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, is the very event of becoming a prophet. The highest moment in his existence is that very moment in which the angel Jibril gives his recitation and ask him to ikra. And then what happened, and what happened to him, and how he changed, and the events that followed. All that in one night in which the condition of the Prophet ﷺ was precisely to be secluded from the world in prayer. And we, because of this event, we still come back to this moment as Laylatul Qadr, and we remember that this was a moment in which the revelation came to us, and this has been interpreted that the entire Quran came to him, and then it was then opened up to him in his heart bit by bit. That tells us something about Laylatul Qadr, this night that is all around us during these 10 days, and we seek and we follow by being, during these 10 nights, prepared. And prepared is to seek that kind of isolation and cut yourself off, stimulate your heart, and pray with the heart. The praying with the heart being cognition itself, changing the way in which you understand the world around you, making changes in your life. For the prayer in its full capacity is transformative. You cannot be the same person before and after the prayer. It changes you. And the sign of a good prayer is that when you come off it, you are wiser. And becoming wiser means that you can see things you couldn't see before, and therefore you act in a manner that you have not done before. It's not business as usual. It is transformation. It's transformation of oneself. And this Laylatul Qadr has the greatest potential of it in the memory of that very moment in which Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam received his prophethood, the seal of his prophethood, and the first revelation with it. So I remind you during this Laylatul Qadr to gather yourself, and during the night seek a seclusion of the world. Leave everything behind and put your heart into the prayer, because putting the heart into the prayer is what makes the prayer more valuable. And to expand into your heart is the path of knowledge. That can be improved continuously, and it can go deeper and deeper and deeper and closer and closer and closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala until His presence becomes absolute clear to you. And that's the science of Ihsan, and that's the science of knowledge. And that's what we seek during these days that remain of our month of Ramadan. Now Fatiha. Bisirri wa barakati. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم.